A South Korean delegation is in North Korea carrying out inspections of facilities where joint events are set to take place. Meanwhile, a second inspection team from Pyongyang is scheduled to arrive in the south tomorrow, this time to check out Olympic stadiums and accommodations. President Moon Jae-in vows to greatly expand support for child rearing, a pledge made during his visit to a public child care center in the capital. Chung Hyeon continues to make history in the tennis world, riding on the high of defeating his childhood hero. The South Korean rising star makes it to the semifinals of the Australian Open, the first Asian player to do so in 86 years. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with day 2 of Seoul's 3-day field survey up north. The inspection team checked out Masikryong Ski Resort and Galma Airport. The back and forth continues tomorrow as their northern counterparts will be crossing the border tomorrow to look around the Olympic stadiums and accommodations. Kim Young-gil has our top story.
South Korea's 12-member inspection team looked around the North Masikryong Ski Resort to see whether the slope is suitable for training alpine and cross-country skiers. They also took a closer look at the accommodation facilities at the resort. The South Korean team's visit comes as the North previously requested a 2-day joint training session for non-Olympic ski athletes. The South inspection team also checked the nearby Galma Airport to see whether it can be used to fly in the South Korean skiing coaches. And on Thursday, the North will again send an 8-member delegation to South Korea for 3 days using the Gyeonggi Line train route on the western side of the peninsula.
The North's inspection team will look around the Olympic stadiums and accommodation. We presume the schedules will be decided for the North's taekwondo demonstrations as well.
The North's first inspection trip was led by Hyun Sung-wol, who is the head of the Samjian Orchestra that will be holding concerts in South Korea. The 140-member art troupe consisting of an orchestra, singers and dancers will put on performances at the Gangneung Art Center on February 8th in Gangneung and at the National Theatre of Korea on February 11th in Seoul. The South Korean government stressed once again on Wednesday that it would make the upcoming Olympics an Olympics of peace.
The government will do its utmost in collaboration with the Korean people and the international community to make the PyeongChang Olympics a chance to advance peace on the Korean peninsula and global peace and cooperation.
Seoul's government said it will try to keep up the positive momentum with Pyongyang by holding further high-level talks, and that it will try to further normalize and restore relations between the two Koreas. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Japan officially announced Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will be visiting South Korea for the Winter Olympics. Seoul is hoping the decision will aid in efforts to develop a future-oriented relationship with Tokyo. Moon Geon-young has a response from the presidential office.
The governments of South Korea and Japan have been discussing Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's visit to South Korea for the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, and we welcome Japan's decision to officially announce the visit.
The Blue House remarks come in response to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's announcement that he would attend the PyeongChang Olympics in South Korea next month after weeks of speculation that the Japanese leader would skip the visit.
If the situation allows it, I want to attend the opening ceremony of the PyeongChang Olympics. In 2020, there's the Tokyo Olympics. I want to attend the opening ceremony of the PyeongChang Olympics, which will also be held in Asia, and cheer on the athletes.
Abe's announcement brushed aside concern that he would not take part due to an ongoing bilateral feud over a 2015 agreement on comfort women, a euphemistic term referring to the victims of Japanese sexual enslavement of Korean women before and during World War II. Under the controversial deal, South Korean President Moon Jae-in's predecessor and her conservative administration agreed to finally and irreversibly end the decades-old dispute in exchange for Japan's apology and contribution of a little over $9 million to a fund set up to support the victims. The new Moon Jae-in administration declared the deal flawed.
일본이 그 진실을 인정하고 또 피해자 할머니들에 대해서 진심을 다해서 사죄하고 그리고 그것을 교훈으로 삼으면서 다시는 그런 일이 일어나지 않도록 국제사회와 함께 노력해 나갈 때 그러면 할머니들도 그 피해를 용서할 수 있을 것이고
We also want to hold a bilateral summit and convey Japan's stance on the Comfort Women Agreement, while also communicating the importance of the Japan-South Korea-U.S. cooperation in maintaining strong pressure against North Korea.
Now, the Blue House plans to maintain its own stance on the issue of Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement, while also seeking close cooperation with Japan so that Mr. Abe's trip this time around could lead to the development of a future-oriented relationship between the two countries. How the two leaders work out their kinks and put their heads together to solve another huge issue facing them, North Korea's nuclear threat, the entire world will be closely watching from here on out. Moon Go-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
Moving on to the world of sports, it's a Cinderella season for Chung Hyeon as he continues to write new chapters in tennis history. At the Australian Open, the rising star defeats his American opponent to become the first Korean tennis player to head to the Grand Slam semifinals. For a recap of the match and the tough road ahead, we turn to our Kim Mo-gyun.
On Wednesday, South Korean tennis player Chung Hyeon beat American tennis Sangren in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open, becoming the first Korean to reach the semifinals of a Grand Slam tournament and the first Asian man to make it to the semifinals of the Australian Open in 86 years. The match at Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne took 2 hours and 30 minutes, with Chung winning 6-4, 7-6, 6-3. In the Association of Tennis Professionals rankings, Sangren was ranked 97th going in and Chung was ranked 58th, but the win is expected to push Chung into the world's top 30 players, which would break the record for Korean men set in 2007 by Lee Hyung-taek, who ranked 36th. At the age of 21, Chung is now the youngest Grand Slam semifinalist in 8 years and the lowest-ranked Australian Open semifinalist in 14 years. The Korean tennis star earned prize money of nearly $711,000 for entering the semifinals and some $40,000 for the quarterfinals, which amount to more than 40% of his accumulated prize money before the Games. With the latest victory, Chung will face world number 2 Roger Federer on Friday. If Chung wins that match, he will become the first Asian player to enter the men's finals in the Australian Open. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Amending the Constitution is a political hot potato at Korea's National Assembly. Core aspects include changing the country's power structure, boosting basic rights, and regional autonomy. For the first of our 3-part series delving deeper into the topic, Kim Min-ji brings to our attention the A to Z of the need for revision.
There has been mounting calls to amend the country's constitution to better reflect social, political, and economic changes since its last revision some 3 decades ago. First established in July 1948, the Constitution has undergone 9 amendments, usually tweaked in a way to consolidate the power of the commander-in-chief. The latest revision in 1987 followed a pro-democracy movement against the military regime of then-President Chun Doo-hwan. It limited the president's tenure to a single 5-year term, stripped the president's right to dissolve parliament, abolish media censorship, and re-establish the Constitutional Court, putting the country on course to becoming a democracy.
The focal point of the amendment now is how to change the government structure to better run the country and amending the charter so that it is in line with the changes in our society.
The matter came under the spotlight again following the massive corruption scandal that led to the impeachment of former President Park Geun-hye, which raised questions about the current power structure. A recent poll showed that more than 7 in 10 Koreans are in favor of an amendment, far outpacing those that think there's no need for one. In fact, pushing for a referendum on the revision in tandem with local elections in June was a common campaign pledge among key presidential candidates during the snap elections last year. At the core of the amendment is the government structure, with some stressing the need to restrict the president's power, saying it leads to corruption. Others argue that a longer tenure is needed, as 5 years is not enough to pursue long-term goals or implement diplomatic policies. Alternatives on the table include a 4-year two-term presidency or a semi-presidential system where the president and prime minister share the power.
Simply put, it's either extending the current tenure to 8 years by allowing a president to run again, or by choosing to decentralize by sharing the role with the prime minister, handpicked by the parliament. Whichever system, what's important is how the power is divided. The president should be in charge of diplomatic and security affairs, while the prime minister deals with internal affairs, such as managing the government complexes that have moved to the administrative capital of Seoul.
The revision also calls for boosting regional autonomy so the municipalities can co-prosper with the capital area, as well as shoring up people's fundamental rights, boosting rights to safety, healthcare, and information, and offering better protection for the socially vulnerable. The due process for amendment requires the approval from 2/3 of sitting lawmakers. Then a majority of Koreans need to vote in favor of it in a referendum. Talks have been underway at the National Assembly, but not much progress has been made with rival parties locking horns over when to hold the vote and how to change the power structure. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
President Jaein visited a public daycare center this morning. There he promised to expand government support for parents with young children. Hwang Ho-jun updates us on how the administration is delivering on the pledge of People First.
It was his first official policy-related site visit since the start of the new year. Under an initiative roughly translated as Changing My Life, President Moon Jae-in visited a public daycare center located in the northern part of Seoul Wednesday morning, meeting with the children, their parents, and some of the teachers. According to the Blue House, national and public daycare centers in Korea are known for their high-quality education at a relatively low price. It said the purpose of President Moon's special visit was to listen to the needs of parents raising young children who are using such facilities. During the meeting, the president pledged not only to continue, but to increase government support for child rearing. He said he will triple the proportion of young children benefiting from public daycare during his time in office.
우리 정부에서는 보육에 대해서 많은 노력들을 해야겠지만 가장 우선적인 과제가 국공립 유치원 어린이집을 이용할 수 있는 아동 비율을 높여야겠다. 적어도 제 임기 중에는 40% 정도로 높이겠다. 그런 목표를 세웠습니다.
According to the Blue House, that proportion stands at 12.9% as of last month. The Moon administration has added 373 new public daycare centers since its launch and plans to build an additional 450 more every year. President Moon stressed that the budget for childcare this year is nearly equal to the country's entire annual budget of the early 1980s. He noted that the government has allocated over $8.1 billion for childcare alone this year, up more than $216 million from 2017. The Liberal leader also pledged to improve the working environment for daycare teachers as well.
President Moon emphasized that the reason behind the high quality of national and public daycare centers is the great treatment the teachers receive as well as their job security. He pledged to extend such support to private daycares as well.
President Moon's visit to the daycare was in line with one of his key policy goals of boosting the nation's record low birth rate. He was showing his support for tackling the high cost of child rearing and promoting work-life balance for parents. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Efforts to be better prepared for the fourth industrial revolution continues in the nation. 6 government ministries laid out their plans to boost innovative growth for this year. Kim Ji-yeon has the highlights from that session.
6 government offices, including the Ministry of Strategy and Finance and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, have outlined their action plans for the year to Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon. In a briefing held on Wednesday, the ministry said they'll focus on creating an ecosystem that encourages innovation and convergence so that the country can be better equipped for the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution.
The term is referred to as a creative destruction that has the power to destroy the old industrial order to create a new one. And its effects are to be wide-ranging to create ripple effects in areas including culture, education, environment, economy, and health. Korea should be equipped with the right technologies and social security systems to deal with these changes.
To do that, the ministry said they'll work on building an infrastructure that supports superconnectivity, as well as improving people's livelihoods through advances in science and technology. The Ministry of Science and ICT says it'll submit a revision to the National Assembly by June to lower mobile telecommunication bills by 18% from last year. The ministries will also aim at making achievements in key innovative sectors, including those related to renewable energy, electric and autonomous vehicles, drones, and smart cities. The Trade Ministry says it'll expand Korea's trade relations with ASEAN member countries and India while increasing collaboration with traditional partners, namely the U.S. and China, in areas concerning the services sector and high tech. Other steps include making strides to revitalize the fintech sector, as well as the nation's junior index KOSDAQ to boost startups. The Office for Government Policy Coordination says it plans to focus on deregulation to help foster new technologies and industries. They'll submit revisions for the implementation of a regulatory sandbox to the National Assembly by next month. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korean instant noodles, or ramyeon, has been garnering greater popularity across the world. Shipments of the convenient treats reached a record high level last year. Cha Sang-mi went out to find out what's driving this trend.
Choose your favorite type of ramyeon and add some water. Wait until the Korean instant noodles are ready to eat. Stir them and you're good to go.
Ramyeon, or instant noodles, is Koreans' all-time favorite instant food. It can be spicy or mild and eaten with or without broth. But these wavy noodles are luring not just locals but global customers too.
Korean ramyeon exports have been increasing over recent years, but 2017 saw a huge surge in overseas sales. The Korean Customs Service announced Tuesday that Korean ramyeon exports last year reached $380 million, up over 31% on year. This is the first time the country saw ramyeon exports surpass the $300 million mark on the back of the strong demand from China, the U.S., and Southeast Asian countries. China alone accounted for over a quarter of Korea's ramyeon exports, with the U.S. and Japan being the next largest markets.
We really like Korean ramyeon, but it's slightly more expensive in Japan, so we like stockpiling ramyeon when we visit Korea.
As for its recent export growth, one of Korea's major ramyeon producers says it localizes its products, such as promoting spicy varieties of its ramyeon in China. The company also focuses on advertising its products through social media.
Perception of Korean food abroad is very safe and good. And as for the Chinese market, social media ads and the scenes of Korean actors eating ramyeon on K-dramas must have affected the export growth.
The producer says social media has definitely drawn more foreign customers to their products, as video clips of consumers trying the fire noodle challenge have gone viral on major social media platforms. Experts predict the trend of growing ramyeon exports will continue in 2018. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
A cold wave warning is issued for most parts of the nation, with the mercury plummeting to 15 degrees Celsius below zero in certain regions. It's by far the most bone-chilling time of this winter. Jaein helps us paint a clearer picture of the freezing condition.
A cold wave is wreaking havoc in South Korea this week. On Wednesday morning, Seoul saw temperatures drop down to minus 16 degrees Celsius, the lowest it's been so far this winter. And due to the icy winds, the temperature is estimated to be minus 23 degrees after wind chill. The extreme cold broke water meters, caused problems with car engines, and disrupted subway operations.
Even with the sun at its peak, it's not that much warmer in the afternoon, with highs of around minus 10 degrees Celsius.
So where is this cold coming from?
The current temperatures are attributed to the cold air from the north of Mongolia, which is as low as minus 50 degrees Celsius. This air is blowing into the Korean peninsula.
The wind is almost painful against bare skin, and my kid's face is all red from the cold.
I heard that today is one of the coldest days and very freezing, and I can feel like sick.
A cold wave warning has been issued in the capital as well as parts of Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do, and Chungcheong-do provinces. This warning is issued when the morning lows dip at least 15 degrees from the previous day to under 3 degrees, and when they're 3 degrees below the annual average. It can also be issued when morning lows stay below minus 15 for 2 consecutive days. The government has issued electricity demand reduction measures for the 3rd time this year and 14th time since their creation in 2014. It asks that the power exchanges and factories reduce their electricity usage. This comes after the extreme cold at the end of last year that led to a record-breaking demand for electricity. Temperatures may continue to be low until next week, but experts forecast that the current conditions are likely to be the coldest it'll get this winter. Lee Jung-hyun, Arirang News.
Prolific Olympic figures, including key staff members, government officials, previous Winter Games medalists, and athletes competing in PyeongChang, assembled under one roof. They came together to pledge their success at the global event. Won Jong-an has the highlights, the sights and sounds from that ceremony.
Nearly 220 people, including athletes and staff who are part of the South Korean national Olympic team, gathered in Seoul on Wednesday for their official launch ahead of the upcoming 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Government officials and previous Olympic medalists also attended the event to encourage and show their support for Team Korea in the first Winter Olympics hosted by the country.
We all know that every one of you have come a long way to be here. And since these Winter Olympics are held here in South Korea, we all know that you will be under great pressure. But we know that you will give your all in the Games, and so we encourage you to show the public your best efforts.
The number of South Korean athletes who are set to compete in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics stands at 146, and including staff members such as coaches and physicians, the total is close to 220 people who will head towards PyeongChang next month. Their goal is clear: to give their all and their best during the Games starting February 9th. South Korea is aiming to win at least 8 gold medals in PyeongChang 2018 and rank within the top 4 in the medal race.
My goal for this PyeongChang 2018 Olympics is to obviously compete and do the best that I can do with my abilities. Of course, every athlete wants to go out there and win gold, win even any of the medals and be on podium. That's one of the good reasons why we are all here, but it's also that we all love the sport that we do.
Wednesday's ceremony featured South Korea's chief delegate for the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics Games, Kim Ji-young, as a flag bearer of the South Korean flag. But after the International Olympic Committee held a meeting last Saturday, it was decided that the two Koreas will march in the opening ceremony as one delegation. And as such, there will be 2 flag bearers, one from the south and one from the north. The two Koreas will march together under the Korean unification flag, making the first joint Korean march into an opening ceremony at an international sports event in 11 years, and the 10th joint march overall. Won Jong-han, Arirang News.
Time now to turn to our Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, we know that the winds can make us feel colder than it actually is, and according to the forecast, it feels like minus 20 degrees Celsius, I heard.
That's right, Daniel. The bitter wind right now is making it feel like minus 19 degrees Celsius in Seoul. The cold wave warnings will continue to be in place for the time being, so don't hesitate to wear that extra layer because you need to bundle up from head to toe, as any exposed skin will be vulnerable to frostbites or any other serious cold-related cold-related conditions. And the southern regions and the west coast don't have it any easier as they are under heavy snow advisories on top of that plunging temperatures. And conditions tomorrow will be similar to today's, unfortunately. Seoul will wake up to minus 16 degrees Celsius and Daegu and Busan beginning the day at minus 13 and minus 9 degrees respectively. Under the cloudless sky tomorrow, Seoul will hardly reach minus 8 degrees, while Gwangju and Busan hitting up to minus 3 and 0 degrees. The cold wave alert will be expected to linger until the weekend, with the mercury finally rising to more bearable readings starting on Saturday. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we could squeeze into tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Thank you for watching as always.